Okay, let's check out the map section. This is where we can get spicy, deep customization. This is where we can send out randomization that will be talking to our synths and samplers. And a great way to do that is with MIDI CC messages. In pretty much most synths, most of the knobs can be sent a CC message. So let's talk about how we can get something really working like this. Now, what we have here are 4 map slots. These are 4 opportunities to send out MIDI CCs. And they will be randomized based on controls within Rhythmizer. So up here, we select our modulation source. It could be velocity, gate. We're going to get into these other ones in a moment. There is a internal chaos engine. So that's just randomizing on every single note. There's no control for that. It's just random. We also have a map LFO. Once you select that, this guy will pop up and we have rate and shape for that LFO. And in this case, we're actually using the grooves to trigger certain MIDI CCs. So what I'm first going to do is just bypass all of them and bring them in one at a time. So I've got the velocity here is modulating macro 1. That CC2 is macro 1 in Serum. That's this guy here. This purple area is the range, so I can bring down that expression if I want. So we are really completely controlling the synth even from Rhythmizer. Let's head over here to the Chaos macro. So like I said, Chaos is an internal randomizing engine, and that's just going out to macro 2. Here on CC slot 3, we're controlling macro 3 in Serum. And this one is using the map LFO. You can see that's a constant. And actually, in Ableton Live, I've hooked up to my MIDI controller the minimum and maximum on this slot. Let's get this first guy going again. Now on the 4th slot, I'm using Groove 2 binary as a modulation source. So that's Groove 2, that's the second knob here. So every time it triggers a dotted 8th note, it's going to also trigger a CC expression, which will be sent to, I've got it going to envelope 1 attack. So that is CC69 in envelope 1 attack. The thinking here is we've got all these short 16th, 30-second notes, but we could occasionally have long sustained notes, but that sort of fade in. So you notice every time we get a dotted 8th, that's going to send CC to attack. I could finesse that by bringing down the range. If I turned it right up, we probably wouldn't even hear that note at all. And I actually think this X-Shaper macro is sort of clashing with this effect, so I'm just going to bypass that and turn that down. Let's hear it now. Now I've selected Groove 2 binary as opposed to Groove 2 random because that's just sending out either on or off. You notice this is only flicking between 2 states. But we could have it Groove 2 random, which means it'll be sending random amounts, but again, only when this note is triggering. Super cool. It's really handy being able to bypass these slots. We can even bypass all of them. The thinking here was that if you have all this modulation going and then you start flicking through presets, what can happen is that you never hear presets in their sort of original intended state because everything's going crazy as soon as you've heard it. So we can choose some presets. Okay, now we've got this preset in its original state. Let's start reintroducing some CC randomization. Okay, so this one's pretty crazy. Why do we have that happening very, very occasionally? So I'll have, for instance, a quarter note. But I'm going to have it happening very occasionally. And I will use that as the source for this map slot. So I'll do groove 1, and let's put random. So now, whenever we get a quarter note, that's going to trigger macro 2. And let's turn the range right up. I actually would maybe prefer the dotted 8th we had before. Okay, now let's hear what it would sound like with this third slot. Yeah, why not? Okay, slot 4. This was the one with long dotted notes triggering attack. So I want to see this moving now. To be honest, at this point, I'd have to add an audio track and start recording this because it sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And I'd love to be able to tear out the audio as I'm making my track. Okay, enough of all that. Some things that we need to explain. So, how are these two devices actually talking to each other? The key is that we have a Serum preset here, Serum Live, and we have a MIDI map for Serum that we've also loaded. These come with your downloads. So that's Rhythmizer Serum. So now, because I've loaded the Serum preset, when I click on the available destinations, I'm seeing the exact CC destinations that correspond to the MIDI map we loaded in Serum. That's how it works. And we've provided these for Vital, Pigments, and Diva, and we hope to expand to more synths soon. One last point here that you've almost definitely noticed, we've got Vital Live, Serum Live, Pigments Live, Diva Live. What's up with that? The reason for that is because at the time of recording this video, we found Ableton Live to have issues with transmitting CC, MIDI CC messages. So for instance, CC3 doesn't send, CC9 doesn't send, so on and so forth. But in the meanwhile, we've prepared these live presets and live MIDI maps that you can load up into both Rhythmizer and your synths, which utilize the working CC messages. For everybody else, for all other DAWs, say for instance if I was in Cubase, see I'm full. Now, because Cubase doesn't have any issues with sending CCs, we have all of these at our options. We just have to go to the MIDI map and load up the full map, and those would now be communicating fully with each other. Let's hope Ableton sort that out soon. And as I'm manipulating the conversation between these two devices, I think this really sums up what makes Rhythmizer so great. Being able to send out such rich, complex modulation and modulating that info with the melodic and rhythmic aspects of the melodies that we're generating means that we can create totally mind-blowing sounds without loading up any audio effects processing or any effects units. Typically, this level of sound design would have looked more like some basic MIDI setup, maybe some more complex synth setup, and then a whole host of glitch plugins afterwards. But we haven't even put any plugins on. We've already got this level of sound design. That's why we talk about maximizing your MIDI jams.